even though the diets widely vary, in terms of low carb, high fat, high carb, low fat, different plants and herbs and spices being used in those regions, different forms of alcohol intake, et cetera. What we do see in terms of prevailing characteristics in all those regions is there's always some semblance of fasting worked in. A lot of times it's based on religious concepts, like the Mediterranean diet. It's very popular among like Eastern Orthodox Christians. And then there's a ton of special fasts in that diet, certain days where you don't eat red meat, certain periods of time where you're avoiding a high intake of proteins, certain periods of time where you're just straight up fasting. We see fasting as one predominant characteristic of every single healthy diet on the face of the planet. Some type of fasting and some type of time during the day or the week or the month where you're not eating a lot of protein.
Talk about the diet stuff. So, because I think a lot of people, especially in the last year and a half, they've realized that they got to take control of their health and their lives. Trapped at home, you can't go to the gym, you're eating takeout food, everything's being delivered, et cetera, et cetera. What's like some basic dietary stuff that people should know?
Well, the fact is that based on biochemical individuality, different shapes of the stomach, the pancreas, the liver, different vitamin D excretion rates, and different ways that we all process food as unique human beings, paired with the fact that we all have unique genetics, right? Like someone from, let's say, sub-Saharan Africa is going to do far better based on equatorial location and sun exposure to high carb intake and lots of fruits and a lower amount of like saturated fats compared to someone of Northern European descent who does really good on like fish, steak, fermented foods, high fat milk, stuff like that. The idea is that it's not going to be the same for everybody, but we live in an era in which the same type of self-quantification test that would have cost like tens of thousands of dollars at say like, the Princeton Longevity Institute or Duke or, any of these places where, a lot of execs would normally get tested to really, really dial in something like diet or nutrition or supplementation. Those are available to us in the comfort of our own home now for a fraction of the cost. So people can test their blood, they can test their genetics, they can test their stool for like, what the gut is asking for. And by testing your body, by looking at your genetics, and by paying attention to your own unique biochemical individuality, you should be able to tweak your diet to you. And what I mean by that is like, the same ketogenic diet that your neighbor used to lose 20 pounds might be super crappy for you and cause inflammation and weight gain in you because you have liver and gallbladder that isn't processing that high intake of saturated fats very well. Or you have, let's say, like an ApoE4 gene, which would dictate that high intake of fats predisposes you to Alzheimer's or dementia, or you have poor enzyme production that dictates that you can't burn fats that well because you don't have enough lipase. And so that's just one example of the fact that there is no one diet that works well for everyone. Now, that being said, a couple of things to think about. First of all, when you look at epidemiological data for a wide variety of the world's populations, probably because humans likely originated somewhere in the Fertile Crescent, something along the lines of like a low carb-ish Mediterranean diet tends to work really well for a lot of people. Not like an Olive Garden unlimited breadsticks diet, but I mean like a diet very rich in herbs and spices and, a wide variety of plant matter, some amounts of fish and eggs, red meat, but in moderation, lots of healthy omega-3 fatty acids, not only from those fish, but things like extra virgin olive oil and avocados and avocado oil and seeds and nuts. Like that low carb Mediterranean profile tends to be something that seems to agree with a lot of people. And then when you look at, these blue zones, these longevity hotspots around the world, like, Nicoya and Icaria and Sardinia and Loma Linda, even though the diets widely vary, in terms of low carb, high fat, high carb, low fat, different plants and herbs and spices being used in those regions, different forms of alcohol intake, et cetera. What we do see in terms of prevailing characteristics in all those regions is there's always some semblance of fasting worked in. A lot of times it's based on religious concepts, like the Mediterranean diet. It's very popular among like Eastern Orthodox Christians. And then there's a ton of special fasts in that diet, certain days where you don't eat red meat, certain periods of time where you're avoiding a high intake of proteins, certain periods of time where you're just straight up fasting. we see fasting as one predominant characteristic of every single healthy diet on the face of the planet. Some type of fasting and some type of time during the day or the week or the month where you're not eating a lot of protein, because protein, in high amounts can tend to have a little bit of an accelerated aging effect. We also see the concept of eating with people, right? Not only saying grace or having a moment of silence or having a moment of appreciation or sacredness around a meal, but also not stuffing your face with a superfood smoothie while you're, going 65 miles an hour down the highway on your way to work. Instead, and I'm highly cognizant of this myself, if I'm going to eat, I always eat in what's called a parasympathetic state. I sit down, I do a little, just a few centering breaths, like in through the nose, out through the mouth. I say grace. I chew each bite 25 to 40 times. I try to eat with people so I'm not distracted by my computer or by my phone, but instead I'm visiting with people. And we see that as another predominant characteristic of a healthy diet, like eating in a very low stress state and eating with people. And then you also see a wide intake of a huge variety of plants and herbs and spices. And I realize that diets like the paleo diet or the carnivore diet or a lot of these highly restrictive diets have popped up and become very popular over the years. And a big premise of those diets is that they eliminate a lot of built-in plant defense mechanisms. Like plants can't move, and so because they don't have hooves and teeth and claws, they develop things like, gluten and lectins and other things that would cause a mammal's gut to be a little bit disturbed, cause that mammal to poop out the seeds of that plant elsewhere so that plant can flourish, or cause that mammal not to come back to that plant to eat it again because it kind of hurt. And so if you have a compromised gut, or if you have the inability to be able to do like our ancestors would have done and soak and sprout and ferment and properly prepare a lot of your plant matter, then yeah, doing something like a paleo or carnivore diet has efficacy. However, in people with healthy guts who don't have a lot of health issues, like a wide variety of plants and herbs and spices really seems to induce longevity and be a healthier form of a diet. And that's another thing we see in a lot of these blue zones. They're not highly restrictive. They eat a huge variety, like 100 plus different plants and herbs and spices. Whereas, in America, I think we're somewhere around like 15 to 20.
Right. So would you say that paleo and carnivore, that kind of stuff, like it's sort of short term to help fix the gut inflammation kind of stuff, but not necessarily long term?
Yeah. Let's say you have leaky gut, you have inflammation issues. You need to kind of give your gut a break, or you need to not have a lot of gluten, a lot of lectins, a lot of dairy. Follow a carnivore diet or a paleo diet for like 12 to 16 weeks to allow your gut to heal and restabilize, but then begin to reincorporate, things like whatever, kale and cucumbers and tomatoes and, all those foods that you might have been missing out on. And then probably the final big thing that we see in a lot of these healthy locations is not the absence of sugar. Right, we actually see a lot of these, like they like their chocolates, they like their sweets, they like their candies. You look at, the analysis of, centenarians or people, in many cases who've lived 115 plus years old. I was reading a fantastic article the other day about like 20 different 115-year-old people, and a lot of them, they comment, "Oh, I love to have my chocolate every day. I love my sweets." And there's even some of them that that would like smoke a cigarette a day. And but the one thing that you'll notice in these folks, and also in a lot of these longevity hotspots, is almost complete absence of vegetable oil intake. Right, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil. A lot of these vegetable oils that we tend to see, especially in processed and packaged foods, or used in restaurants to cook. And the reason for that is because vegetable oils, based on the fact that they're comprised of fats, are what your body uses to create things like cell membranes, cholesterol, mitochondrial membranes. Your body uses these oils as building blocks. And if they're unstable oils, rancid oils that have been exposed to high amounts of heat or pressure, what happens is those vegetable oils really truly become a case of you are what you eat. And they create rampant inflammation, weak cell membranes, poor metabolism. And so whereas sugar isn't as big of a deal as most people think, vegetable oils, I tell people, you want to be healthy, ruthlessly eliminate vegetable oils from your diet. And sometimes that means, like me, if I go to a restaurant, I literally ask them, like I'm that asshole who says like, what'd you cook the Brussels sprouts in? Or can I have my salad, but bring the dressing on the side? And then I have like a little fanny pack I go out with, and I just have like a 4-ounce thing of olive oil in there, right? And I'll put olive oil on my salad instead of whatever sauce or dressing they have at the restaurant, because I am so aware of vegetable oil intake. That's the one
so you
thing.
want everything basically to be cooked either in anything that needs to be cooked with oil to be cooked with either olive oil or avocado oil. Does it matter which one? And,
The top ones I like are butter, ghee, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia nut oil, or any super stable animal fat like tallow or suet or any of those fats. Coconut oil would be another one, like the fats that are solid at room temperature, but not solid at room temperature because, like Crisco, they've been synthesized, but instead solid because that's the way they naturally are. So when it comes to diet, just coming full circle here, eat in a de-stressed state, have some periods of fasting and protein restriction. Be careful with sugar, but you don't got to swear that off completely. Completely eliminate vegetable oil and eat a wide variety of plants and herbs and spices. And if you can, get your genetics tested, get your blood tested, just kind of see what your ancestors ate, see what you're biochemically kind of like primed to actually be able to flourish with. And that way you can take some of those concepts I just outlined and then tweak your diet a little bit so it's more customized to you.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about lifestyles instead of nonstop yelling, check out our lifestyle playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.